This is what happens when you come sit on my lap. Hi everyone, my name is Brittany and welcome back to my channel. Today I wanted to take you all through how I go about fitting pants, more specifically how I go about tapering pant legs. So I seem to have thicker thighs and calves than what most patterns are drafted for, so I know that I always have to be super cautious when I'm fitting pant legs just so that they don't become overly tight on me. I've been known to bust a couple of seams from my me-mades, from all of my I guess just normal regular person activity like walking, sitting down. So for today, I'll be working with my own pattern, the Chandler Pants, just because I know that these pants have a ton of ease in them, especially in the thighs and calves. I designed it that way so that they would be secret pajamas after all. So I have less of a chance of accidentally overfitting or making my pants too tight. Plus, I have tons of samples of these from actually making the pattern for the relaunch, so I can skip a whole step and just dive right in to fitting the pants legs to my unique frame. With that, let's get started. I don't know if you all can hear that, but there are a ton of birds in our yard right now, just having the time of their lives. There are so many birds in the front yard too. I always recommend creating a sample of any garment prior to cutting it out of your final fabric. Every pattern design is different, as is every pattern brand, so it just makes sense to make a quick sample. So I'm just going to spin around in the mirror a bit to check where I might want to adjust the fit on these trouser legs. For me, it seems like all the excess in the legs is coming from the back of the pants, whereas the front seems to be spot on. I'm going to roughly pin out the back pants and see what that does to the overall look and shape. This part was a bit tricky as I'm not the most flexible. If you have someone who can help you with this part, that is awesome and would make it go by so much faster. Now that everything is pinned, I'm just going to test out how well I can move in the narrower legs. I want to make sure that I can still squat down, do some kicks, and generally go about my day in these pants. Everything is looking pretty good, and though the difference between the two legs is only slight, I still feel that the pinned out option looks better on my frame, though I do love the looseness of the original as well. All right, so I've pinned out this one side and I've taken basically all of the excess out of the back because that's where a lot of excess is due to the elastic waist of these pants. And I already really like the difference. I think that the taper on this one is really nice. This one is good too. It's just when both of them were kind of wide-legged, it looked a little off on me, so this is what it should look like with both of them tapered. I also do realize that I need to raise the rise of these pants just a little bit as they are cutting it quite close to the crotch, but I will save that for another tutorial on another day. So yeah, I'm just going to take off these pants and transfer the measurements from my pin marks to my pattern and cut out my new sample. Now that my pant leg is all pinned, I am going to take a couple of measurements so that I can transfer these pin marks onto my pattern piece without having to actually do anything to this sample, because the sample is quite cute. Even though the legs are a little bit bulkier, I still like it a lot and I want to be able to wear it. So the first one I'm going to take is the length. So from the bottom of the cuff all the way to where it starts to taper out into the butt point. I'm just going to measure that. I probably should have gotten a normal tape measure, but this will work just fine. So it turned out to be 26 inches long from the bottom of the cuff all the way up, and I'm going to have to remember that this is cuffed because the pattern piece doesn't account for the cuff. So it's 0.5 times 1.5 equals plus 1.5 equals 3 plus 1 equals, so sorry, I had to do a little math. So it's about 4 inches. So on the actual pattern piece, what I'm gonna do is go from the bottom 30 inches up. So that accounts for the cuff size too. So just gonna put that here. It's always good to note your measurements whenever you can. And now I'm going to measure the width of each, like a couple of different points just to see. And I'm going to mark the amount at the various points as well. So, and then this looks like the largest. Yeah, so it's 2 inches. And just remembering to add the 4 inches as well. Perfect, so I've got all of my little measurements. So I've measured the length and then various widths along this entire thing. And so I actually don't need this piece anymore. So I've got my freshly pressed pattern piece, I've got my ruler, my measurements. Now what I'm going to do is transfer these measurements onto my actual pattern piece. The first one I want to mark is the 30-inch length, which I'm going to get a longer tape measure for that. All right, so I'm going to mark the length, and I determined that to be about 30 inches from the bottom of this pattern. So I'm going to mark right here. So that actually seems about right. This is literally right underneath the rise of the pant, and that's about where all of the excess bagginess I felt was coming in to my particular pants. So this makes total sense. So I'm just going to draw a quick line across, because what I'm going to be doing is I'm going to actually be taking in the pant from either side the same exact amount. So the reason that I'm doing that is because pants patterns are actually balanced with the grain line. So what that means is that from the crotch point down on either side of the grain line, these two should measure about the same. Now it may vary depending on like where your grain line is placed for the pattern, but generally speaking, if you were to fold your pattern piece in half from crotch to the side, like so, your pants would basically match up on either side, if that makes sense. I learned about pants balancing from Minimalist Machinist, and it has totally rocked my world. So with this alteration, I could do one of two things. I could either do a fisheye dart, which looks something like this in the center of my pattern, or I can take those measurement pieces and simply bring them in like this on either side of the pant leg. I'm going to opt for bringing it in on either side of the pant leg just because it's a much simpler alteration to do rather than doing the fisheye, because when you do the fisheye dart, what you have to do is then cut and slash and spread and like re-true everything, whereas this one, you just have to draw the lines and make sure that your measurements are equal on both sides at the same places all the way down. So I'm gonna opt for easier today. So the very first thing that I found was I took in 1 inch at the ankle. So 1 inch divided by 2 is ½ an inch. So on either side of the pattern piece, I'm going to draw a line that is ½ an inch in. All right, so that's done, check. So after the ankle is 14 inches from the hem line, I'm going to take it in 1½ inches, which is 3/4 of an inch on either side. So I'm just going to measure up 14 inches. I'm going to draw a line across so that I know that I'm going on both sides an equal amount. And then I'm going to mark 3/4 of an inch. And now I'm just going to connect these two lines. So I'm going to basically true them into one another. So you have something that looks a little bit like this. I'm going to repeat the same process with any remaining measurement points that I have. And then the final point is right where I'd measured before, which is at the 30 inches. So I already drew my line across, and what I'm actually going to do is taper it out because this from here up fit me well. So I'm just going to taper this back into nothing on either side. So this is what your pants pattern, or my pants pattern, looks like. your pants pattern might be a little bit different. So what I'm going to do is trim off this excess and cut out a sample and get to sewing my second sample and seeing how it fits compared to the first. Now that that's all done, it's time for me to cut out my fabric and sew up a new sample, and I will show you exactly what that looks like as soon as I'm done. I'm going to start by cutting out all of my pattern pieces from this incredible bed sheet that I recently thrifted. It's such a great color, and I really love that there is a grid on it, as it makes pattern cutting so much easier. Then it's time to move into sewing the actual sample. Time for a quick tea break. And it's back to sewing. Right, so I have officially finished the pants and they are looking so terrible. Oh my gosh, I have no idea what I did wrong. Just kidding. They look amazing. They actually came out really, really good, but it is torrentially raining outside right now, so I'm going to have to wait until tomorrow to film the finalized look. So that's what I'm gonna do. I'm just going to sign off for today, and then I will be back tomorrow with a compare and contrast of the original Chandler pants that I made and the new ones. So here is a quick look at the originals again. And then here is the new, more tapered leg version. Thank you so much for tuning in again today. I hope that you enjoyed this tutorial, and if there are any other fitting tutorials such as this one that you would like to see, feel free to let me know in the comments below. And don't forget that if you like this video, to like and subscribe and ring the notification bell. That way you are always notified first when I have a new tutorial or sewing video. Bye! Well, now you gotta say